Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with baked fried rice. That's right, everybody knows that fried rice is the perfect way to use leftover cooked rice. But what if we really want fried rice and we don't have any? Well, of course we could cook some and let it cool and then make fried rice. Or better yet, we could use this method and do everything in one step. And by the way, this video is dedicated to everyone who can't, no matter which recipe or technique they use, make a decent pot of cooked rice on the stove. Alright, you know who you are. But take heart, because this comes out perfect every time. And to get started, we will add some long grain rice to a baking dish or pan. And then to that we will add some vegetable oil, as well as some sesame oil. At which point we'll take a spatula and stir this until every single grain is coated with those oils. And by the way, I added a pretty generous amount, since a properly made fried rice is fairly greasy. But in case it matters, this technique still will work, even if you don't use quite as much as I did. Alright, so if you want to use a little bit less, go ahead. I mean, you are after all the Heidi Fleiss of lubricating your rice. But having said that, we do need these grains coated with some amount of oil for this technique to work properly. And then once our oil's been stirred in, we can go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients, which for me will include some crushed garlic, which we probably should have stirred in with the oil. We will also toss in some sliced green onions, as well as some beautifully diced red bell pepper and carrot. And by the way, I didn't dice those so small just to show off my knife skills, although that was part of it. But also because those have to be fully cooked in the relatively short time it's going to take to cook the rice. So smaller is better. And then we will finish this off with some green peas, as well as some diced ham, which ideally would actually be Chinese barbecued pork, which we have posted a video for, and it's very good. So maybe make that and then use it for this. But regardless of what you use to accessorize your rice, we'll go ahead and stir that in. And we will keep stirring until we think everything is evenly distributed. Oh, and I should quickly mention, depending on how salty your ham is, and or how salty your chicken broth is, you may want to add a little bit of extra salt in at this point. Alright, personally I didn't need to add any, but just a little something to keep in mind. But anyway, once that's set, we will head to the stove, where we will add some chicken broth to the saucepan, which is set over high heat. And of course, homemade's always preferred. But truth be told, in this recipe, the stuff from the carton is totally fine. And then we will definitely also want a generous splash of soy sauce, as well as one optional ingredient, some chili paste. And I just happen to be using a Korean version, but really anything you like will work. And what we'll do is give that a quick stir, and we will simply wait for that to come up to a simmer. And don't go anywhere. Alright, we don't want this to start simmering and then boiling and reducing. Alright, so stay in visual contact. And as soon as we see that broth simmering, we'll go ahead and pull it off the heat, and quickly but very carefully pour it into our rice. And once that's been transferred in, we'll go ahead and grab a spoon or other stirring instrument, and give this a very brief stir, before covering it very, very tightly with some heavy-duty foil. Alright, if you're only going to splurge for one thing at the grocery store, besides, of course, real Parmesan cheese, make it a roll of heavy-duty foil. Alright, it's a little more expensive, but worth every penny. And then what we'll do once we have that tightly wrapped is transfer that into the center of a 400-degree oven, where we're going to let it bake for exactly 32 minutes, at which point we'll go ahead and carefully pull that out, and then do absolutely nothing for 10 minutes. Alright, no touching or peeking. Alright, just let that sit there undisturbed for 10 minutes, so it can properly finish cooking, at which point then we can pull off the foil, and we will grab a fork, and we will give this a stir, which in the business is known as fluffing. At least this business. And by thoughtfully fluffing this with a fork, what we're doing is releasing a ton of steam and heat, as well as separating all those grains of rice. And thanks to our grains of rice being coated with oil, before it absorbed all that hot liquid, not only is our rice going to be perfectly tender, with just the perfect amount of starchiness on the surface, but as hopefully you can see, every single grain is perfectly separate. So long story short, with this technique we've achieved rice nirvana, which in fairness is one of the easiest types of nirvana to achieve, but still. And of course this is now ready to taste and adjust with seasoning if we want. And if it's tasting good, you could just start enjoying this. But since we're trying to simulate fried rice, I like to do one extra step. And that would be putting this back into a very hot oven uncovered, at like 475 for about 10 minutes, or you could if you want do it under the broiler for like 3 or 4 minutes, until that top surface gets beautifully browned and crusty, and hopefully looks a little something like this. In this way, not only do we have something that tastes like fried rice, we actually sorta kinda get a similar texture. And that's it. I went ahead and finished this up by garnishing with some green onion. and grabbed a fork for the official taste. And that, my friends, in both taste and texture, was remarkably similar to a classic fried rice. Except while the crispiness might not be quite as same as the pan-fried, the texture of the rice itself is actually probably better, thanks to it is basically a rice pilaf method. And while this would be very enjoyable eating straight out of the pan, what would be even better is putting some in a bowl and topping it with a poached egg that I flipped over because usually the opposite side from the yolk is the smoother side. But of course, because I was showing that in a video, this side was actually rougher. Well played, universe. But anyway, I finished up with some more sesame oil, as well as some sliced green onions and chili flakes. And by the way, the sesame oil I was using was very mild, which is why I was able to put so much on. Okay, some brands can be very strong, so be careful. And then once garnished, I grabbed a spoon. And please prepare yourself for the money shot in 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah. Alright, don't get me wrong, plain fried rice is fine. But fried rice with a runny egg yolk is like on a whole other plane of existence. And believe me, that is a plane where you want to exist. So this really did turn out to be a very simple, but extremely enjoyable lunch. But anyway, whether you're craving fried rice and don't have any cooked rice to make it with, or you've just given up on the stovetop, and you finally want to be able to make a perfect batch of rice, either way, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.